Unless you're a bookkeeper or financial connoisseur, handling your business finances might leave you scratching your head. How do you know how much do you need to budget for expenses? What is a rainy day fund, and do you need one?
We've invited Megan Mendez to talk to us about all things business finances and how it might differ from what you're doing with your personal budget.
Megan Mendez is a former teacher that needed to get out of debt to leave the classroom for good. In 2021, she paid off $53,000 worth of debt in 12 months while leveraging freelancing to do so. She's been able to grow a successful business to help her family become financially free, and now she's helping others do the same.
Megan helps women and moms who are struggling financially to get started with freelancing to provide them with supplemental or full-time income so that they can walk away from their 9-to-5 and become financially free. Being an online business owner is full of ups and downs. Some days you can't imagine going back to your 9-to-5, and other days you want to burn your whole business to the ground. We get it.
Welcome to Chaos to Conversions, a podcast of practical, no BS strategies to grow your online business. Each week, we're chatting about launching, copywriting, mindset, and more, so you can make sense of the chaos and do more of what works.
Join the conversation and let's grow together.
Welcome back to Chaos to Conversions. We are really excited to have Megan on the podcast with us today. We kind of just read off her bio for you, but yeah, Megan, I actually did a training with her, probably like a year ago, but she is kind of what I would consider in my eyes a financial connoisseur, especially when it comes to all things business finances. But I know you also do like personal budgeting as well, which is actually why I worked with her originally. And we actually met Megan in a mastermind.
Was it 2023? Yes.
Yeah,
It was the beginning of
2023.
2023.
That's how we all met each other. So we've actually all met in person too, which is really fun because that doesn't often happen in the online space. But anyways, yeah, that's how we got introduced. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear from her today. So let's jump right in. What does financial freedom mean to you?
It's different for everybody. And I want to say that beforehand because what some other version of financial freedom on TikTok, that you see running around and my version of financial freedom, they may not always be aligned. And so really staying off TikTok and off social media when you're trying to define that is really important because you may be looking at the Tahoe mom that just records TikToks all day and is a stay-at-home mom and gets to raise her kids or sends them off to school or whatever and shops all day and decorates for Christmas. And you would be like, wow, I want that. That's what I want. But you don't know anything behind the scenes going on in their family and in their life. And so it's good to just pause and not go down that rabbit hole, but instead to just look internally at your own situation and your own life and just assess what that looks like for you and your family. And so it can change and differ per family and per person. But for me, it is the time freedom that I have with this business. It's the financial freedom that I get to be able to make as much money as I want, make as little money as I want. I don't have to be confined to a classroom every single day. We get to, my husband and I, because I have this business, we get to invest in our Roth IRAs and we get to invest into our financial future. We've made a college fund for our daughter. So it's just opened so many doors for us. But I don't have that Tahoe at home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't go shopping for Christmas decorations this time of year. And so, if you look at my social media, you may not even know or see that I have financial freedom or that I'm living in that season of financial freedom. But I am. We are so thankful. We're so blessed. It really just comes down to the little things when I get to wake up every single morning and feed my daughter and then hang out with her. And then when she takes a nap, I can clock in and get some work done. And we spend the rest of the day together and go on from there. We don't have any debt. We don't have any major bills or anything. Just the normal, survive, live life type stuff. But so that's kind of what financial freedom is for me. But I do think in general, it just varies. And you just have to assess your life and what your goals are and what that looks for you and see, what is it going to mean if I have financial freedom? Maybe that is you and your spouse both go to work 40, 60 hours a week and all your bills are paid and your kids are fed and happy and you're fed and happy and everybody's happy. Then that's awesome. That's wonderful. There's no right or wrong way for financial freedom. Just don't compare is the only thing I would say. Don't compare mine to yours because it looks different for everybody.
I think that's a really good point. I don't know if you've read the book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. It's like a very popular financial book, but it's kind of like the same premise. He talks about having your rich life. And he's like, it's not rich. Like, sure, if you want to be a millionaire, go for it. You want to make millions? Awesome. But really, everyone gets to define their rich life. Maybe for me, like my rich life would be feeling comfortable, having my needs covered, and also getting to do some of my wants. But like, I don't need to live in a McMansion.
Exactly. No, I've never read that, but it sounds like a good one because it is true. I mean, we are so quote unquote rich, but we don't have millions of dollars in the bank account. And so it's really just what your life entails and what you have in your life that makes you blessed and rich.
I feel like it's so true and it's so important. And I'm so glad that you said that because even just so I'm in outside of DC. So it's a really wealthy area. Like when I was in the classroom, I taught kids whose parents played for the Commanders. I taught kids whose parents were literal senators and like worked on the Hill. But you just never know. Like I've had conversations with people, moms in passing here, and different people are comfortable sharing different things. But like I've had moms drop like, oh, well, we have this, but we also have $60,000 in credit card debt, just winging it. I know they should call you, but just like winging it off, like, doesn't everyone? And I'm like, I think everybody does, but you seem fine with it. So I guess that's good for you. But I think it's just so important to keep in mind, you have no idea, even people who are like, I could go out and buy, now I kind of want to, but I could go out and buy like all the Christmas decorations today, you know what I mean? And pay someone to put lights up. But if that made me happy, but it's not that everyone is just like automatically paying for all of this up front.
Do they even have the money? Are they paying cash? Or are they putting it on a credit card to where it's stacking up more debt and bills? So, no, so many good points that y'all just mentioned there.
Now, when you think about, since we are all business owners, when you think about setting up a business budget versus a personal budget with that sort of financial freedom in mind, how would you say that like a business budget might differ from a personal budget?
The way you set them up and run them are similar and can be the same. I think though with business, you have to think more on, because you don't have to do this with a personal budget. You have to think more of profit, loss, revenue. All of those words mean completely different things. And depending on your goals, you may be trying to increase your profit percentage, which is going to be how much that you're taking after you or post revenue. And so really just assessing those goals. And then also, do I want to do any investing in my business, whether that be for a new program or a new software or outsourcing of sorts, or maybe it's you want to invest into a different business structure from, an LLC to an S corp, which can be costly at times. And so you do have similar questions and similar thoughts when you do a personal budget, but you don't necessarily have a profit and loss and a revenue. You just have your paychecks that you make monthly. Whereas a business, you have to look from the top all the way down to the bottom. And so what we may bring home or what we may make in cash, 10K a month, is not actually what we can bring home and pay our families. So it's similar to, when you work a W-2 job and you have my salary is $60,000 a year and you divide that by 12 and that gets you whatever, you're not actually making that top number per se. Taxes and medical and insurance and all this stuff has to come out. On the business side of things, you have to kind of do it yourself, or you can outsource that too if you want. But it's just things that you have to think about. And I think when people are very beginner in business in this online space, when they say, oh my gosh, I just made $100, it feels like you just made $100 and you can put it right in your pocket. But that's not always true. You have to think about taxes and expenses and et cetera, and go down the line. And so when you really do kind of take those blinders off and get to the nitty gritty, it's really not $100.
It's so hard. I feel like when I first started, it's just a really big learning curve, right? To figure out and like, where do I even start and who should I listen to and who's right and who's wrong. And I used somebody for the first 3 years in business, like my old accountant from when I was a teacher. And he just didn't know anything about like the online space. So I had to switch. And now I use somebody who lives in Colorado and I've never met in real life.
That brings up a great point though, because, if you do outsource and hire, it is good to find somebody that is in or knows your specialty. And so I'll use this as another example. So people that are in MLMs, that is a very
Mhm.
niche specific business structure and business model. And so you want to work with accountants and bookkeepers, et cetera, that know that space because they're going to know the loopholes of what expenses you can actually charge from an MLM, from online business, or if I have a product-based business and I sell hand soaps or whatever. So finding somebody that knows your area of expertise is so important because they're going to save you a lot of money in the long run.
That's so true. I didn't even think about like MLMs being something totally different, but obviously it is. It's like
Mm.
it's a thing all, all by itself.
I follow a girl on TikTok who's been in the MLM space for a while, and she was using an accountant or a CPA or one of those people, and she was overpaying on taxes by like $20,000 a year.
Holy cow.
Getting the right person that knows your area of expertise and doesn't just do general tax type stuff to where they're just going to give you the basic deductions can be really impactful. It's not incredibly impactful when your business brings in $10,000 a year, but when your business brings in $100,000 a year,
Mhm.
$200,000, etc., $1 million a year, wherever you are in business, you want to make sure that you have the right people on your team to really give you the best bang for your buck because it's coming out of your pocket essentially at the end of the day. And that I'm all about keeping as much money in your pocket as you can.
I definitely agree with that. So I know going back to talking about difference between personal and business, we're talking about taxes, we're talking about possibly outsourcing. How can you actually get started with creating a budget for your business? Because I'll be honest, I don't really have like a business budget. I mean, I know like my expenses and my income, but it's like I don't really have I do it in my personal life, but in my business, I just haven't quite nailed the whole budget piece of it.
No, there's a gap that has to be bridged there too, because when I first got started, I was the budget queen in my own personal life. But then when it comes to business, I was basically doing the very generic cut and dry.
Mm.
I have like these three expenses. I'm saving this much for taxes and that's it. I wasn't planning like for the year, and I wasn't planning for those subscriptions that were one time and that come up and at random times. If anybody's listening and they're in their first year of business, it's good to be safe than sorry. So just document everything, save a little more than you would for taxes, pay yourself a little less. That way you just have a good foundation for year one. Because what I'm going to suggest you do is at the end of your first year or at the end of the year in your business, go back and look and see, okay, how much revenue did I make? You can do it. I track all mine monthly. I track it quarterly. You can track it yearly. You're going to need all of that for tax purposes anyways. So don't wait till month 12 to do it. If I were you, I would make that part of one of your monthly tasks that you do at the end of the month, like do your bookkeeping, but start with your profit. So everything that your clients paid you, and then look at what business expenses that you have. Look at what you have monthly. So this could be Zoom if you pay for Zoom monthly. This could be HoneyBook if you pay for that monthly. You can get all of those on yearly subscriptions, which I'll talk about in just a second. Any expenses that you need if you buy a digital product that you want to check out for your business, anything like that. Then you're going to want to track and keep charge of your internet. If you use your phone for business, I am always working from my phone. So I write that off or I write that in to everything. Granted, now when you use your internet and you use your phone in your office space or whatever, you can only calculate a certain percentage of that. So consult a tax person 1000% to see what that's going to look like. But I just document it so that I know and I can give it to her at the end of the year and she can go about her way. But really just like the things that you do monthly. So your website, show it. I think I pay like $30 a month to have that up and running. Podcast, I think you got to pay, what is it? You have to pay for something, or you can do it yearly on one of the platforms. But look at everything that you do monthly and keep that documented. But here's the way that you can prepare for the next year. So we're in December. Probably by the time this airs, we'll be in December. So look at 2024 and Zoom, Canva, Captivate if you have a podcast, anything that you pay for yearly, and document that and calculate how much that is for the year. And then for next year, when you go to make your profit, expenses, save for taxes, and then I'm going to take home X amount. Let's say all of your yearly subscriptions were $1,200. If you can pay per subscriptions at a year, it will save you a little bit of money. If you have trust issues like me, you may want to do it monthly. But after you've been in business for 1 year, you really just get over it and you're like, okay, I'm in it. I'm doing it. I'm just going to pay for the year version of everything. But I do understand some people only want to do per monthly. And if you are in your first year business, I would suggest doing monthly just so you can decide, do I even like HoneyBook? You may not even like certain platforms that you try in that first year. I'm getting on a tangent here, so let me reel it back in. But anyway, so if your yearly subscriptions are $1,200, I want you to divide that by 12. And that is what you're going to set aside for each month. So that way, when those subscriptions come up, the money will already be in your account. So I think mine even were sporadic of like I had one in February, I had one in April, I had one in July, and I had one in November. And so it was like I had already set aside the money for them month after month. So when they did come out of my account, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, now I have to pay this $300 HoneyBook fee. It was just, oh, I already set it aside earlier in the year from setting aside, the 1,200 divided by 12. So the $100, and now it's paid for. To review, as I feel like that was a very long-winded answer. You have your profit, you have your revenue. So how much money your clients are paying you. You want to subtract any of your monthly normal expenses. You have that $100 set aside for the yearly subscription. So when they do come up, you're prepared. And then you set aside however much you want to save for taxes, 20, 30, 15, 40. It just depends on what your tax accountant suggests, what you feel comfortable suggesting, etc. And then after you've done all of those deductions, subtractions, that will get you to your profit that you can pay yourself. And if you want to pay yourself all of it, because you're the only one that is in business, congratulations, do it. If you want to, if you're like, wow, that's too much, I actually don't need that, I don't need to bring home $5,000, then say you can, only pay yourself $4,000 and you can save some of that and set it aside so that if you want to pay for a mastermind in 6 months, you've got money set aside to do those things.
That was super thorough. I feel like I was thinking about I feel like I set up my own spreadsheet 4 years ago when I started this whole rigmarole. I think it works like that. Now I'm going to go check it after we hang up. But, like when you hear people say, and people have like always said this, even for people that have W-2 jobs, do you have like a certain amount that you recommend saving for like your rainy day or like your emergency fund? I always hear different things, but like, what do you think?
You will hear different experts
Sure.
say different things. I always say it depends. When we were paying off debt, we had a house. And so $1,000 in our, emergency fund, our rainy day fund, wasn't going to get us jack squat if something actually big went wrong in our house. So I didn't feel comfortable just having $1,000. So then, but if I have a lot of like high interest credit card debt, which is in the 10s and 20s%, then the $1,000 in the emergency fund is probably your best bet because you're spending so much money on interest with the 10 and 20%, interest rate credit cards. But a good rule of thumb just for anybody in any phase of life is about 3 to 6. 3 is the lower end of living expenses in an emergency fund. And so depending on how much your family spends a month, that can be anywhere between 10, 15, 20,000 on the 3-month scale, or it can be 20, 30, $40,000, which is a lot. And I don't suggest that just sitting in, an emergency fund. I would suggest putting that in a high yield savings account of some sort. And so I'll give you our current example right now. We have and keep $2,000 cash in our, just normal savings account for if we have any overdrafts, if we need money right now, today, for tomorrow, if we have a quick emergency. And then we keep our actual big emergency fund. If I were to lose my business, if my husband was to lose his job, a big emergency, we have to replace our air conditioner, whatever, we keep that in a high yield savings account. So it's at least earning 4 to 5% interest for the year. And it's not just being sitting ducks. That's what we do. We just try to keep the emergency fund. Like we'll dip into it every so often. And if I'm like, oh, okay, we just had to spend $500 for that, I'll just like, let me just make sure I put some stuff back in it so that we have that 2000 cash on hand for whatever small emergency we may have.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like I've often heard 3 months as well. I was just wondering, which you did answer, about like if that varies for business versus personal. But I mean, it makes sense, right? Like as long as you have 3 months of like your living expenses, then.
So in the business, I don't always do that per se.
Mhm.
If you want to, in that. I think it depends too on like what kind of business you have. So we're
Sure.
service providers. So the likelihood of us just losing our entire clientele in our business tomorrow is not the case. But if you're a product-based business, then you have to be a little more strategic because you're working on sales and I need to make sure I sell 50 face cleansers a month to make sure that I'm making. And so there's just a lot
Yeah.
of other thoughts that go into it. But I think your general population is service providers in general. So I will speak to them when I speak on this. The things that I do and keep in my business account is number one, I try to keep enough money to where they don't charge me the bank fees because that drives me insane, which is usually $1,000, $2,000, which is another like safety net, emergency fund, whatever. It's another just type of assurance, I guess, insurance, insurance.
Assurance. Either way. Yeah.
One of those. One of those. And then I keep my tax money in just the bank account. And so if
Mhm.
you pay quarterly taxes, it's not going to sit very long usually because you're paying those 4 times a year. If you're newer in business and you don't pay quarterly taxes yet, then you probably won't have too much in there anyway. So I would just leave it sitting in your normal bank account. But if you do want to plan for, and I think Branda and I had this conversation whenever her and I met, but that was one of the things her and I really talked about because she was like, I have all of this money sitting in there. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, you do. You're right. But something that she felt good with was having a couple of months of, I lost a client. I've lost all my clients. I need to pay myself money in her emergency fund or in her savings, her business savings account so that if I lose Betty, who's a $1,500 a month client, even if she has a 30-day cancellation policy, if I can't recoup that after 30 days, I need to come up with $1,500 so that my husband's not yelling at me because I'm not making the paycheck. And so, Brandon and I talked about keeping a little bit of like a month, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever number you feel comfortable with, keeping that in your business bank account so that when Betty Lou cancels, because clients, they just do, they cancel and they're not always reliable. And that's just the business. It ebbs and flows and it comes and goes and up and down. And we can't rely that everybody's going to stay with us forever until we decide we want to leave them. And so if we can just keep that kind of money in our business account, when those situations do happen, it's less financially impactful on us in our family and in our business and in our mental capacity and health, that where it's like, oh, okay, we're good. I have that. I can get it covered. Now my goal is, of course, at the 30-day mark because her contract is up. But if I can't get it at 30 days, I can pay myself for, another 30 days. And that's now 60 days from when she canceled. So being strategic like that can give you peace of mind as a business owner when you're self-employed and you're in charge of doing it all, finding the clients, paying yourself, making an income, all of the financial stress that comes with being self-employed.
I still have a good amount actually saved up, and a lot of that I'm hoping I will be able to use for maternity leave at some point, which is also something I think we don't think about. Being self-employed, we don't have, well, let's be honest, no one in America is getting paid to take time off to have a kid. But especially when you're self-employed, right? You don't even have that opportunity unless you can pay yourself.
Oh, that does bring up a really good point. And if you don't know this, I'm pregnant and due in January. And there's so many different options and avenues that you can do and take when you're self-employed and want to go on maternity leave. And so an idea that I just thought of, which I'm sure others have done, but is if I have, if I want to take 3 months, I have 3 months saved into my account. That's what I'm going to pay myself. And then I'm going to outsource all of my month-to-month clients and pay what I would be making if you want to pay that much or whatever, pay all them so that I can literally unplug for 3 months. Now, I've never done that. but it's something that you could do. I like to work. So I'm psycho. But if you really like first time moms, I would encourage to try to take as much time off as possible. And so that could be a way for you to do it. So having that 3 months, like you said, in your business bank account would be great.
So as we kind of like wrap up this conversation, I know there's a lot of just like mindset that goes into money. We all have different baggage that we bring when it comes to money. We were all raised in different environments where we talk about money differently. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur who might be struggling with negative thoughts about money, whether that be I'm not worth charging this amount of money or having scarcity about how much they spend in their business? That was definitely me for like the first year. I just hoarded money like crazy because I was so scared to spend money. What advice would you give to someone who might be battling some negative mindset around money?
I see it all the time, and I wish I could go and shake some people and just like, hey, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay, because there's so many different spectrums when it comes to finances and being a business owner. Some people are they take it very stressful when they lose a client, or when it comes to paying themselves or keeping money. Or I see people that are so fixated on, I need to make $10,000 a month. And they're not even like happy or proud of what they currently are making and charging in their business. And they just always feel like they just need to have more, more, more. So what I would say to the people that are struggling with mindset is really good if you can talk to somebody, whether that be a mentor, somebody in the online space like me that can just have like a one-off session with you to help you walk you through what's actually going on in your bank account, like I did with Branda, or even somebody that knows self-employment and knows, the online space. So not usually your mom or a spouse or whatever, somebody that actually gets, the thick of what we go through and what we're dealing with. Because just having a third party perspective of your situation, of your finances, of your money that you have going on in your business can give you a lot of clarity. As for what to charge, I think that, when people do want to increase their rates, that takes a lot of mindset work. And if you are in a season where you're like, okay, I've done this for a year now and I've only charged X amount, it's time that I increase my prices. I encourage you to do some heavy, heavy mindset work, whether that be finding a good podcast that is talking about empowerment and charging your worth, or a financial podcast, or finding a mentor, or finding, a community of some sort. But really, you're going to have to build that internally for you to be confident about increasing your rates and moving forward. Because if you don't have the solid mindset foundation, when you go to increase these rates and charge people more money, you're going to freak out when you get no's, and you're going to revert back to your current prices to where you're like, okay, we're good. I'm just going to do this. And then you didn't get anywhere. You didn't grow your income. You didn't necessarily grow your business. And so I think just seeking help from somebody in the online space, whether that be a mentor, a friend, it doesn't even have to be somebody that you pay for necessarily, but just a voice memo between somebody that gets it, that can help you and pour into your cup.
100% suggest talking to someone about mindset stuff. I know I did a mastermind last year specifically for copywriters, and that was a really big thing that I feel like I worked through. Talking with her is like getting so much of business is mental. I think that's something I've learned a lot this year. Is business is very vulnerable, and you don't get to separate who you are in your personal life when you walk into your business. It's not like you leave behind all the nasty messaging that you've gotten or all the insecurities you have. They come with you. And I've definitely something I've realized that this year, and that if you don't work on those things in your personal life, they're not going to get any better in your business. And that obviously comes with money too. So
yeah, I was going to say it's the same with money baggage, with the way people grew up and were raised, and that is another conversation and a whole thing that you have to evaluate of, okay, this money fear, problem, whatever stems from. This is so annoying and so cliche, and I feel like everybody is saying it these days, but my childhood trauma, that is what has shaped me, and is what has gotten to me and why I am the way that I am right now. Like I do that to myself and to everybody else too, where I'm like, yeah, okay, well, this stems from my childhood. but it's true, where you come from.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're all over 20 years old at this point if you're having a business, over 30 at some point too. So, you have to like, okay, these are habits and things that I've known 20, 30 years of my life. Like it's going to take a lot of deep work to relearn.
I mean, most definitely. Well, you, Megan, have given us a lot to think about. Yay. Would you kindly explain how people can connect with you further or work with you further? And we will leave all of these links in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So my social media across pretty much all platforms is just Megan Mendez __. I have my link in bio there. I have a website too, meganmendez.com, where you can, search more and read more about me and, see what I have to offer. Um, and so really social media or the website will get you any of those things. As for freebies, I have like a personal budget template that you can find. I also have, and this is completely free with tons of resources. I have a podcast that you can listen to wherever you get your podcast, which is Freelancing Your Way to Financial Freedom. If you go to Freelancing Your Way to Financial Freedom, you are going to find so many resources there that you can literally just plug in your headphones and listen as you walk, work, whatever, and I'll walk you through so much. I've got, a one-off call like Branda and I have done together that we can do if that's something that you're interested in. I have monthly coaching if you're wanting more mentorship and accountability. And so those are the ways that we can work together, and go steal all my free stuff.
Always loved having you on here, Megan. It's honestly been really nice. And for anyone who might be listening and considering working with Megan and hiring her for one-off call, it truly was really helpful. I still use that template that she gives me for my own budget. So yeah, if you want someone to help you get out of credit card debt, talk through finances in your business or personal life, she's definitely a good resource. So thank you so much, Megan. Thanks so much for joining our conversation today. If you enjoyed this episode, please head to your listening app and leave a quick rating and review.
If you're on Instagram, share this episode and tag us at Duxbury Digital and at The Relevant Collective. We'd love to hear from you. We'll meet you back here next Tuesday for more practical strategies to take your business from chaos to conversions.